entered the PM Entertainment Podcast.
Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of the PM Entertainment Podcast, the show that genuinely celebrates the production company from those auteurs of action, masters of mayhem, and sultans of swing, Rick Pepin and Joseph Mehy, the production company that likes a seedy sidewalk, a nightstick-swinging female cop, and more cliches than you'd find in an overstocked cliche-only warehouse store that hasn't sold a cliche in months, and the production company that should have multiple stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, considering how many cars they blew up or crashed on Hollywood Boulevard. I'm your host, Jon Cross, and don't forget, if you like the show, please remember to rate and review us on any of the podcasting platforms you use, share our Facebook posts, like, comment, and you can contact us via our email, pmentpod@gmail.com. That's pmentpod@gmail.com. This week, we're heading back to the grimy prostitution and drug dealer riddled streets and warehouses of Los Angeles with a feminist flip on the usual hot-headed vigilante cop story as Traci Lords takes down users and abusers all over the place with a variety of weaponry, including some panties in a gas tank, all while dealing with her slime of a boyfriend, Luke from the Gilmore Girls, and her shouty 1 month from retirement police captain, Yaphet Kotto. Directed by Charles T. Kanganis, who started with Pepin and Mehy back when he acted in Hollow Gate for City Lights Entertainment in 1988, which, by the way, sidebar, is now out on Blu-ray, along with many other City Lights films, The Newly Deads and Dance or Die, available from terra-vision.com, as well as Grindhouse Video, Brother Belial, and other independent boutique Blu-ray traders. Grab them before they're all gone. He wrote and directed such PM faves as Time to Die, No Escape, No Return, and this episode's film, 1992's Intent to Kill. He also wrote LA Heat, LA Vice, Midnight Warrior, Night of the Wilding, and Bikini Summer 2, and directed Deadly Breed, Sinners, and Chance. On a personal side note, because I also have a weird thing for Jim Belushi movies, he also worked with Jim Belushi on K-9's sequel, K911, and several episodes of According to Jim. Our guest this week is a freelance journalist author who has contributed to sites such as HorrorGeekLife.com, HorrorNews.net, TheActionElite.com, KungFuMagazine.com, and several others. He's also written for print magazines like Kung Fu Tai Chi, Exploitation Nation, Taekwondo Times, and Videoscope. He contributed heavily to the book The Good, the Tough, and the Deadly, Action Movies and Stars, 1960 to Present, released in 2016 by Schiffer Publishing, edited by David J. Moore. As well as writing, he works closely with heavy metal legend and rock and roll nightmare star John Michael Thor, worked with Enjoy the Ride Records and Malibu Bay Films to release the soundtrack to Andy Sidaris' Hard Ticket to Hawaii on vinyl, cassette, and digital, and his book, Sheldon Lettich, From Vietnam to Van Damme, was released last July by Bear Manor Media. There's more because he's that damn impressive, but most importantly, he's been planning on writing a book on PM, like a reference guide with some reviews and interviews. We've never talked like this before, but with a resume like that, I'm insanely excited to get into it with the one, the only, Corey Danner. Sir, it is a huge welcome from me to you, to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me on the show. I've been looking forward to it.
Well, sir, what an insane resume. That is absolutely fantastic. I don't think we've had anyone on here, obviously, apart from the legends from PM Entertainment, of course. They have all equally hearty resumes. But let's just go through a little bit of it. How did you get started in writing and for movies?
Well, I was just always been obsessed with movies, and felt like I somehow had to, I had to get, at least if I wasn't making movies, I have to at least be writing or talking about them. So, I found a website that was looking for reviewers, and that's kind of where it started. Eventually, they asked me to do some interviews, and then I just kind of branched off from there.
Nice. And you've worked with or continue to work with the action movie star, the singer, the wrestler, the Canadian legend Thor. Is that kind of your ongoing day job and career?
I wish. But that's more of I've always been a fan of B horror movies, and Rock and Roll Nightmare was always one that it always stuck with me after seeing it on USA's Up All Night. It was kind of something I was always obsessed with. And maybe 10 years ago, there was a documentary that came out about him. And I was kind of like flabbergasted, like, wow, this guy's still around, still doing it. So I reached out and ended up doing an interview with him. And we've been friends ever since. And now I run a bunch of his social media for him, and I do odds and ends, if he needs a favor for something, or I book shows, and just kind of a little bit of everything.
Nice. Very cool. Very cool. And obviously, a lot of people will thank you for getting Andy Sidaris' Hard Ticket to Hawaii out on vinyl, cassette, and digital. How did you get involved in that? I mean, it's a great soundtrack. Everyone loves the song, at least, but it's also a great soundtrack and a fantastically fun film. How did you get involved in that?
That was, well, not to toot my own horn, but that was actually all my idea. And I reached out to Andy's widow, Arlene, and just asked, if there was anything, anything planned, or if she'd ever thought of releasing it, or if it was even possible, if she knew what the materials were. And she's like, yeah, I have everything. I own the rights to everything, but I don't know what to do with it. Because if you want to try and figure something out, do it. So I had no idea what I was doing, but I typed some stuff out and sent emails out to every one of the the smaller boutique record labels and stuff that were doing kind of B-movie stuff, and Enjoy the Ride was the best fit, and they literally hit a home run with what they did with that record. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the limited edition disc they put out. There was only maybe 50 or something like that actually has sand and razor blades inside the record.
I didn't see that, but that is incredible. That is fantastic.
Yeah. So just the fact that, they actually put that much effort into putting out that release was, enough for me. And I couldn't have been happier with how it turned out. And Arlene was super happy with how it turned out, because there's been like a resurgence in his films, especially Hard Ticket to Hawaii. And so, I was pretty happy with that.
Yeah. And I was still reviewing, because I've had the website aftermoviediner.com for a long time, and sort of been reviewing movies, doing podcast interviews, various different things for about the last 12 or 13 years. And I was still getting the Mill Creek screeners when they put out the full run of Sidaris' Blu-rays. So I'm very thankful to have all of Sidaris' stuff on nice crisp Blu-ray.
That's actually what put the idea in my head, was when they started to release those. It kind of brought back the memories, and I was like, man, I actually really like this music. And yeah, that's what I ended up doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, with PM Entertainment, especially, like by doing this show, by someone like yourself working on a book, things like that, and by Claudio Ulrich in Switzerland and Germany putting out the media books. I just really hope we start to get some things like that. I mean, I think the sad thing is that, Joseph and Rick don't have, any of the materials anymore. It's just not, they once they sold off the company, that was it. They kind of cleared up and packed out, so it might be harder, but I mean, I would love the Steel Frontier soundtrack on vinyl. I mean, it's one of the best soundtracks they ever did.
Oh, for sure.
So no, I would love to see something like that come out of this. We've said this before, but I would love a company like, I think Vinegar Syndrome is probably the most poised to do something like this, but to start doing. I would like to see a company do a full run of them, of every one.
Mhm.
But even if that doesn't happen, I would still like to see some key titles. Even if all we got was, I don't know, all the Don the Dragon Wilsons, all the Gary Daniels, all the, the Cynthia Rothrock one, and maybe the Lorenzo Lamases. Like, even if we just got the ones that they think they could sell because of the names, that would be great. But I would love to see all of them. And with the work Claudio's doing, there's no reason why we should. And then we've got Terra-Vision.com releasing the City Lights Entertainment Blu-rays, which came out of nowhere. I had no idea they were going to do. They've done Hollowgate, The Newly Deads, and Dance or Die so far. And they've been reaching out to, they spoke to Richard Munchkin about Dance or Die. They've been doing extra features and stuff. I think they spoke to Addison Randall, I think. Yeah, I mean, that took me by surprise. And Terra-Vision.com is just, they don't have as active a social media presence as, say, Dawn of the Discs or Brother Belial or anything like that. Yeah. So there isn't even someone there outside of emailing them or, reaching out to them directly. There isn't even someone online that's kind of talking about them. So talk to me about your book. So you've been thinking about writing a PM Entertainment book. You sort of described it as a reference guide with sort of some reviews and interviews. So where are you with that? And where did that idea originally come from?
Well, I would say I'm about 30 to 40% done. I'm really want to get some more interviews. And, when all the strikes happened, I had a couple people lined up that had backed out and I've never been able to get back in touch with them. So I'm kind of, and there's some that I'm just like dead set on trying to get that are like really, really difficult. So I'm kind of trying to take my time with it. But based on my experience with David J. Moore's book, The Good, the Tough, and the Deadly, which was basically a reference guide to action stars and their films, but we only covered the action stars that were martial artists or who crossed over from professional sports, professional wrestling, that type of thing. And we just kind of set it up where we just went through all their films. We did like these kind of micro reviews, synopsis type things, and sprinkled interviews within the pages. And I kind of want to format it similar to that. But like my big thing was, should I include the City Lights stuff or should I not? And should I include the films that they distributed but not produced? And so I'm still kind of, fighting with that a little bit because there's just so much stuff that I didn't realize that they had actually released.
Yeah.
Or distributed. So I'm not sure if that's something I should really pursue or not, but I feel like they need to be in there in some capacity.
Yeah. I mean, I feel that the ones that they released but didn't produce, or distributed rather but didn't produce, that could be, that could kind of be like a postword, like a last chapter, sort of a almost like a glossary, just kind of a list of the movies, and then maybe any little bits of trivia that you could find out from, Rick or Joe or whoever.
Yeah.
If you wanted to go that far. In terms of City Lights, again, I'm trying to think. There's I love reference books like this, and I love books about movies. I have a slasher guide book. I have a zombie movie book. I have a few of the action books that have been published. I have Brian Trenchard Smith's enormous book on movie making and stuff. And it would all depend. I think it makes it harder for you because Terra-Vision are releasing them again. It sort of means, oh wait, they are a viable property. They're not just something that's been lost to time. Now they're coming out again. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So if they were just like a precursor to PM, you could have just written a couple of pages that was like, before they were PM, they tried stuff out with City Lights. You could tell the story about Joseph wanting to make a comedy, everyone telling him, don't make comedy, make action, and then they're making mayhem and going from there, right? So you could kind of do like a few bits on that and then just like jump to PM. But now that they're getting a release and everyone's sort of seeing them again.
Yeah.
But then also, because the City Lights ones are more exploitative, grindhousey, and in some cases full-blown horror, maybe they don't fit with the genre. I mean, if you're doing an action book, as much as people like yourself and me obviously are big fans of both genres, and the genres do go hand in hand, I also feel like the kind of person who's going to buy an action book doesn't necessarily want to read about 12 or 13, however many City Lights horror movies were made before they went that way. I would, but I don't want to give you more work.
But, even PM had a few, they did the Bikini Summer movies, so they don't even really fall in line with what we traditionally think of as a PM entertainment film. But
and Little Bigfoot 1 and 2, of course.
That's a Little Bigfoot. There's a couple. Yeah, there was actually a few kids movies that they did that were kind of, was it? I can't remember. There's one with Joe Piscopo or something like that. And there's a few other ones. It's just like, ugh. Do I want to include those? But I kind of feel like they need to be in there, just to keep it complete.
Right, and I mean that's the other thing is you could also start the book and say, look, there are something, because I mean when I look down both Joe and Rick's IMDb, but also the Wikipedia list of what is meant to be the full complete list of PM Entertainment films, coupled with a couple of other references that I've been able to find online, there are some movies that they made that it is from Joe and Rick, and they either produced them or executive produced them, of which there is no version that I can find anywhere, of which there is no information that I can find on anywhere. Not many, but there's like 2 or 3 where you're just like, what is this film? Some random thing. So you could just start the book and say, look, these are movies that the producers of them don't even own them anymore, and therefore what information is out there is sparse. So if one of the entries is just, there was this movie, they made it in this year, it starred these people, and all Joe and Rick could tell me about it was X, that's fine, I guess, if it's going to be like a reference book. You don't have to be the be-all and end-all because no one else is writing the book on it, so. Yeah. And your other book that the book that you've written entirely yourself, which is Sheldon Lettich, From Vietnam to Van Damme. I got to meet Sheldon when he was screening Double Impact at the Alamo Drafthouse in Brooklyn. So I did get to meet him there and say, hey, but how did that book come about, and why Sheldon in general was a focus for you?
Actually, that's pretty interesting because I was actually asked to do a retro piece on Lionheart for the 30th anniversary for Horror Geek Life. And I had met Sheldon when I was doing the Good, the Tough, and the Deadly book. We did a book signing out in LA, and he was there with us and everything. So I had contact with him. So I figured, maybe I'll reach out and see if he'd be interested in doing just like a short interview about Lionheart and, stuff that I could work into the article, which I did. And I thought it turned out pretty good. And about 6 months after it came out, I get a phone call from Sheldon Lettich. He's like, I want to do a book about my life and career, but I don't want to do it myself. Is this something you'd be interested in? So he asked me, and I wasn't going to turn him down. I was like, yeah, absolutely. When I was a kid, I had Rambo 3 poster, Double Impact poster on my wall. There's no way I was going to say no.
Of course.
So that's pretty much how that came about. And he and I worked pretty closely, throughout the whole process of writing that book. And he was able to put me in touch with a few of his, past colleagues. I got to interview Mark Dacascos, which was kind of a dream interview for me because I've always been a huge Dacascos fan. And I mean, Van Damme didn't work out, but we tried. And but I was really happy.
That's always odd to me because I mean, you would think Sheldon Lettich sort of, if anyone is associated with Van Damme as his sort of writer, producer, director, it's kind of Sheldon, and he probably owes Sheldon at least 20 minutes on the phone.
Yeah, but it seems like Van Damme's a unique personality, and that kind of, it was on. First he said yes, then he said no, then he said yes, and then it was a no, and then, but I did try.
It happens. So were you always into action movies from an early age? Was that always your jam?
Very early age. I mean, I used to watch like Kung Fu theater on Saturday afternoons with my dad when I was a little kid. Just a lot of the old Shaw Brothers stuff.
Yeah.
And Bruce Lee stuff. And that stuff always stuck with me, and then Bruce Lee led to the Chuck Norris movies. And then, Chuck Norris led to me following Cannon films. And then I would start, there was a point where I would, a lot of people talk about, when they're older, I walked up a hill, 20 miles in the snow to get to school. Yeah. I did that for video stores.
Yeah.
I would walk, I'd get my headphones on, I'd bundle up, and I would walk to video stores, and anything that looked like there was either horror or martial arts, I was getting it, or some sort of action movie. And that's how I kind of discovered a lot of these guys was just, I just would walk in these video stores and look at box covers. And if they looked like they were fighting, I got it.
Yeah. Can you remember when you first came across PM Entertainment films specifically?
Gary Daniels. I remember seeing that guy with the ponytail, and I seen the cover for Firepower, and I was like, hey, that's that guy. And I noticed, Chad McQueen, who I knew. So I was like, I'll give that a shot. And that was probably the first PM movie. Then I think second one, I was into Robert Patrick. I seen Hong Kong 97, and then I had seen like the boxes like right next to each other, that and Zero Tolerance. So, one after the other. And then I kept noticing that logo. So every time I would see that logo, I would just rent it blindly. For years, I had t-shirts and, I'm planning on getting a tattoo, with the logo. I already have my Canon, and, because I always felt like, PM was just kind of picked up where Canon left off in a way.
Yeah.
Without, obviously not the huge budgets, but, to an extent, I felt like they were just like an extension of what Canon was doing. And I loved so much, of the early Canon stuff that I just kind of naturally gravitated, even, what's this, Deadly Bet was another movie that I had caught early on and recognized that it was a PM Entertainment movie. And then there were some that I had seen numerous times and didn't realize that it was a PM movie. And it just, as soon as I realized it, it's always been in the back of my head for, almost 30 years now.
Yeah. And I also feel that yes, while Canon had the stars and the budget and the gloss, definitely. And while I love Canon films, and there's plenty of Canon films that are in my even before I knew about Canon and Dolph Lundgren, I was a huge Master of the Universe fan. I love that movie unironically. I think it's legitimately like a fun, silly, big, brash fish out of water story. I really enjoy it. I know a lot of other people kind of ironically watch movies these days. I'm not that guy.
As you can see.
I see it behind you. Yeah, I see it behind you. It's fantastic. Canon I was definitely aware of. But I have to say that when I watch PM films, they sort of deliver in a way that I always hoped Canon would deliver, especially with the stunts.
Oh, yeah.
You always sit down to watch a Canon film and go, oh, it's a Canon film. It's going to be great. It's going to be big. It's going to be lots of explosions, blah, 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 blah. And sure, there's the odd moment where you're like, oh, yeah, this is fantastic. And they are glossy and, they have the stars and everything else. But PM, I think, serves up way more bang for your buck when it comes to the stunts, the action, and just general insanity. And I think that kind of plays more into my sensibility in a way. I don't mind a big glossy Hollywood movie, but I love a rough and ready, made by the skin of their teeth kind of movie. I'm absolutely that's my sweet spot. And if you're throwing cars down Hollywood Boulevard, cocking a shotgun with one hand and all the rest of it, more power to you. So yeah, I find myself going to my PM shelf way more than my Canon shelf these days. And not just because of this podcast. So lastly then, in our questions that we ask all our guests, do you have a favorite PM film, or at least a top three, I guess?
Ooh,
difficult for you, I'm sure. But
definitely a difficult, because I'm still, I'm probably about 30 to 40 films in.
Yeah.
And at the top of the list would probably be, as of right now, would probably be Recoil.
Yep.
I don't know. There's some of the stunts in that one just kind of blew me away. That and Last Man Standing is probably up there.
Yeah, it's a great one.
And
Wincott, very underrated. Wincott, very underrated. Very underrated.
I always felt he was one of the better actors as far as the martial arts guys are concerned. I mean, he's genuinely a really, really good actor right from the get-go.
There's two guys who I think, when you think of all the people who ended up getting action careers, there are two guys who I feel their martial arts are genuinely compelling on screen in a way that you don't necessarily see, and that their acting is, a notch above. One is Jeff Wincott and one is Jeff Speakman. I wish Jeff Speakman had been in more, at least PM level budgeted movies.
Oh, yeah.
There was a big fall from A Perfect Weapon and Street Night down to, the mid-budgeted, low-budgeted movies, and then an even bigger fall down into some of his other stuff. And, we'll never know, but it would have been, I would have loved to have seen, Speakman and Wincott together, the two Jeffs. Come on now. Why did that never happen? You know what I mean? The two, because their martial arts is so intense and aggressive and fast,
very
hard hitting, and you don't need to edit a lot with Speakman. You know what I mean? His hands are nice and fast. And look, even if it's just a lot of flash and in reality, maybe it wouldn't be. It's still him. If you put his best scenes from his best movies next to stuff like Mission of Justice and Martial Law 2 and Last Man Standing and Deadly Bet, if you put those Wincott and Speakman together, that would just have been an absolute phenomenal combo.
Oh, definitely. I couldn't agree more.
So great. All right. Okay. Well, now you know what time it is. It's time for the PM Entertainment Bullet Points.
It's the PM Entertainment Bullet Points.
We have sleazy slow-mo opening credits. Luke from the Gilmore Girls with a very obvious walkie-talkie while apparently undercover. Traci Lords dressed as a tomboy prostitute from the 1960s. Sleazy Hollywood Boulevard. Beautiful Ken Blakey cinematography. A car full of Hispanic drug lord stereotypes and a limousine. A woman rolling from a car chase, shootout, a panel van turning on a dime. Two of the most cumbersome vehicles to do a high-speed chase. Cop car on the sidewalk. Man falling randomly through glass door of shop. Obvious male stunt double for Traci Lords. Obvious stunt crash mat. Lots of gunfire. 3 cars explode. Person flying away from explosion in slow motion. Many people diving away from a car explosion in slow motion. Tasty slow motion blood squibs. Gratuitous sweaty woman in string bikini riding a bike. Gratuitous ADR overdubbing. Gratuitous cop with classic car, gratuitous cop boyfriend in gratuitous wife beater vest, being a gratuitous jerk with a put-on Italian-American accent, gratuitous boom mic, gratuitous wishing for a better life while walking in a park montage, gratuitous fight between scuzzy boyfriend and friend on the police force that is looked upon like a brother but who wants a little more, gratuitous evil laughter in slow motion, Yaphet Kotto being a stereotypical shouty police captain, saying the line, "You'll find your fingers filing fingerprints until your fingers fall off." Captain is 1 month from retirement, and we find this out while he's lecturing Traci Lords about staying alive. Gee, I wonder what's going to happen. Although, actually, we'll get into it. Traci beats up rapists with a nightstick, throws a man off a balcony, and shoots a bong at close range. Drug dealers shooting each other at point-blank range with Uzis. Breaking a bottle of liquor over a sleazy boss's head. Title of the movie set at 39-minute mark by Yaphet Kotto. Horrific deaths of drug dealers montage, including pillow bagging a guy's head and hitting it with a golf club. Exploding a classic car by lighting a pair of panties in the gas tank. Making out like a rolled-up magazine is the same as an iron bar. Greatest example of shit, we haven't had any action for a while, so let's have a kickboxing match break out for no reason whatsoever. Followed closely by kickboxing wasn't enough action, so have two thugs with Uzis attack the restaurant where our hero and her cop friend are having a date so that we can get just a little bit more action in this sucker. Insanely violent coke-fueled attack on police station with multiple casualties. Boy, these drug dealers love shooting people at close range. Late in the film, Goodfellas rip off drug dealers' money and gambling montage. Inept cops run by a hothead idiot ex-boyfriend being gunned down in firefight with drug dealers, leaving Traci Lords to save the day. Where's a rolled-up magazine when you need one? Gunfight turns into car chase. Comedy throwback of police car on the sidewalk, almost hitting bandaged man who fell through glass during opening chase, who then falls through glass again. Car leaps through truck filled with large tubs filled with water. Traci Lords badass cocking shotgun with one hand and blowing perp away, and then walking away from a car which explodes twice, which is a pretty awesome ending. And end credit song, Stand Tall or Fall, performed by Lost Art. Wow, it's like a female-driven Death Wish film on steroids. And that is it. So that's our bullet points rundown. A lot of bullet points in this one. I had a ton of fun with this one. So do you want to run through the plot for us, Corey?
Sure. I mean, just kind of keeping it to its basic core. Tracy's a detective, and she's the movie starts with her going undercover, and she wants to nail these drug dealers, and she gets in a limo with these guys when she's not supposed to, and obviously things are going to go sour right away. So there's a huge shootout, and bad guys get away, but at least the cops were able to nab the $5 million in cocaine, in the trunk. So these drug dealers are going to want to get that money back, or that cocaine back, and things start to happen, and Tracy's she's like almost the fall guy, the scapegoat for this whole botched arrest or whatever you want to call it, and everyone's against her. And the way she, at least the way I see it is, it's like almost a redemption story in a way, with her trying to, redemption and revenge, but trying to show everyone around her that she's not a helpless woman and she can do this on her own.
Yeah, I mean, I called it a female-driven Death Wish film because there is that aspect, I think, when they're trying to show her, initially the first half of the movie, they try and show her as what would typically be a male character, which would be kind of the cop on the edge, right?
Yeah.
Cop doesn't play by the rules, cop on the edge, beats up perps and asks questions later, kind of stereotype. Well, in this one, that's what Traci Lords is, right? And Yaphet Kotto's always saying to her, you got to show your badge, you got to go by the book, you got to do this, you got to do that. And she doesn't do that. And even when, it's not long into the movie, we see a woman who's come into the police station right after Traci Lords has had her ass chewed out by Yaphet Kotto. Not literally, I'm not being gross, just it's a turn of phrase. But sorry. There's a woman describing a horrible rape that's happened. The male desk sergeant doesn't seem to give two shits about it, and in fact is quite sort of verbally abusive with her and rough with her. Traci Lords then takes it upon herself to go around to her house and beat up all the guys quite violently who did that to her, including throwing one off a roof. This sort of continues a while, and what's interesting about this is that we had a trend out of a few of the PM Entertainment films that we've covered, where in order to convince ourselves that the person we're following is really the hero, everyone stands around and says what a great cop they are, even though we've seen no evidence to the fact, right? What's interesting about this is no one's saying Traci Lords is a great cop. In fact, everyone is saying she needs to stop doing everything that she's doing and she needs to be a better cop. Yet, and I'm going to continue calling him Luke from the Gilmore Girls, because apart from this and the Gilmore Girls, I've not seen him in anything else, or certainly not aware that I've seen it's Scott Patterson in anything else, but maybe I have. I was surprised.
All the Saw movies?
Is he in what?
Like the Saw 4, 5, 6. He's in like 3 or 4 of the Saw movies. The later.
Oh, he is? Oh, yeah. I had no idea. Yeah. Okay, fair enough then. But he's still
other than those.
And what's interesting is, I don't know how interesting it is. The town that I live in, New Milford, Connecticut, is considered by the author of the Gilmore Girls one of the towns that inspired the show and inspired the books I think they were based on before the show came out. And recently, in the last, in April, it was mid-April, so like just 2 weeks ago, or a week and a half ago, whenever it was, they did a weekend where fans of the Gilmore Girls came to our town and they changed all the little shop fronts into, looking like Luke's Diner or Miss Kim's Antiques or whatever, right? And about 8 of the stars from the show came to our town. I didn't get to see any of them. They were all kind of in a meet and greet space where the fans who had actually paid sort of went and met them in the gymnasium or wherever they were. I don't know where it was set up. But Scott Patterson was in my town a week and a half ago. And because this is the first time that I've seen Intent to Kill, if I'd known that he was in it. So I've seen Ice and I'd seen Time to Die. I'd never seen Intent to Kill, which is kind of why I was excited to watch it for this episode. And had I known he was in it before today, I would have figured out a way to have gone and seen him and been like, hey, you were in a PM Entertainment film. And him being like, this is Gilmore Girls, dude. What are you doing here? Me being like, nobody cares about that show. Apparently they do. Apparently hundreds and hundreds of people care about that show because they all paid lots of money to come to my small town, which the only thing that we have here is a bandstand. You better not call it a gazebo. If you call it a gazebo, the local townsfolk put pitchforks and flaming sticks and march on you. But no, we have a bandstand. It's the only thing that's the same as the Gilmore Girls. And of course, they filmed everything out in LA. No one ever came here. So, it's funny. But he was here in my town a week and a half ago. So that's kind of bizarre. And then here he is in this movie, dating Traci Lords and cheating on her like a big scumbag.
He's so unlikable after, the opening, shootout or whatever. He's like, they wake up in the morning at, have breakfast at the house or whatever. And he's just like immediately an unlikable character.
Yes. Immediately outside in his, we call them a wife beater vest in the UK, which is not politically correct at all. I believe you call them a tank here, like a tank top, right?
We do, but the term a wife beater has been used.
Okay, good.
To describe them, it's pretty universal.
It's a John McClane tank, is what it is.
Yeah, okay.
Essentially, but worn by a scumbag, and he's just outside with his greasy hair, sweating all over another incredibly sweaty woman who is wearing a string bikini while riding a bike, which can't be comfortable.
No,
because like the thing they make bike seats out of sticks to naked flesh. So like that, I'm surprised. Like she rides away and obviously doesn't put her butt on the seat because if she did, she'd like rip all the skin off it. But he's touching up her tattoo and sweating all over her and showing off his. I love that his car is like a bright yellow. What car is it? Do you even know what car that is? I tried making it out, but I couldn't make it out. Yeah. It's meant to be a classic car, but it is an older car, but it's not like a cool older car. It's not like a Chevy or some old Lincoln or something. No, it's like a weird little. I mean, it's one step up from Herbie the Love Bug, essentially. It's like one. It's like a little. I don't know. It's like a little trundle around town car from the '60s, is what it looks like, but it's just painted bright yellow, and. He's all like, yeah, check my car out, baby, and all this sort of stuff. And you're just like, what are you doing, dude? You got Traci Lords at home. Come on now. You got 24-year-old Traci Lords in a Yankees jersey making you some tea and toast. Go inside. What are you doing, you mad person? But no, instead he's sleazing all over string bikini lady, which, as you say, makes him immediately unlikable from the get-go. But my point earlier, which I rambled off about Gilmore Girls, my point earlier was that what's interesting, again, kind of playing, I guess, into the feminism and sexist angle of the movie, is that, she gets told off all the time for not being a good cop, yet he's not a good cop either. And he continues to be able to do whatever the hell he wants, even down to the end where he's somehow put in charge of this big mission, even though she's the one that's done all the work, and he's the one who's just gone around beating up informants.
Yeah, I had a little bit of I guess like my main issue was nothing against Yaphet Kotto, and his character was great, but he was on Tracy's side, but yet kept giving, I think his name, Al's character, kept giving him, the case and put him in charge, but yet he's still obviously, protecting. Maybe, I guess maybe he's more of a father figure and he's being overly protective, maybe because she was so maybe inexperienced or whatever. But
they also set it up, as I said in my spiel. They set it up in a very cliched way that Yaphet Kotto would get killed. And I thought that when they did the sort of big violent police shootout, because I was waiting the whole movie, I'm like, he's 1 month from retirement, right? He does a big spiel with Traci Lords about, I want us both to live. You have to live. And you've got, decades left on the force. Unlike me, I retire in a month. And I'm thinking, oh, he's dead. I mean, any other movie, any other character, any other police chief anywhere in any other film, he's dead by the midway point. And so when you see the drug gang go into the police station to start like shooting it up, I'm like, oh, here we go. We're going to lose Yaphet Kotto. And then we don't. In fact, Yaphet never comes back into the movie after that. Yeah. And instead they kill her would-be boyfriend, who I didn't like either, by the way. I thought he was also a sleazy guy. But at least I don't know. He was just all over her. Like, oh, I hear you're single. Let me just be very forcibly asking you out for a date over and over again until you say yes, kind of thing, which I didn't like either. But she entertained for some reason, which was weird. But yeah, Yaphet Kotto, I guess they had him for like 3 days or whatever, and then I don't know, never had him back. But it was all set up, I thought, from the beginning of the movie to have him die, and they had a scene where he could have died. So I don't know. All they had to do was dress someone up who looked like Yaphet from behind, and just have him fall over in a hail of bullets. But no, so we never find out what happens to Captain Kotto.
But at least they gave him the best lines in the movie.
Oh, best lines, hands down, best lines in the movie, and he delivers them like a pro. He's fantastic. And I have to say, overall, I mean, our overall thoughts, we can go into our favorite scenes in a minute, but like my overall thoughts are that I was genuinely very surprised by this movie because her other two films are not as action-packed as this and are not as violent as this, and also do not have the, considering it's, made by a guy, written by a guy, produced by a guy, shot by a guy, and most of the cast is male. It is a surprisingly, within its genre, within its budget, it is a feminist film for as much as you can claim it's a feminist film. I mean, I know that's maybe stretching credulity a little bit, but there's enough feminist message in there.
It's there, yeah.
And I've got to believe that came from Traci, I think.
Yeah, because at that point in her career, she was trying to prove something.
Yeah, definitely.
She was trying to break away from her past, and she was, obviously, John Waters is the one that put her on the map as far as working in Hollywood goes. But at least with the films she did for PM, they were lead roles. They weren't sex pot, showing up doing, whatever. I mean, they were lead roles. They were fully developed, at least in my opinion, fully developed characters. And in each film, the characters are not the same. So she's really had the opportunity to stretch herself as an actress.
Yeah, and I said earlier that she's only done 3, but then of course she did Extramarital, and she did the Earthquake one. So she actually did like 5 with PM. Sorry, that's my mistake. She did a few more later on. So she clearly, she stuck with PM on and off throughout the whole of the 90s, because this one is from 92, and of course the last one she does with them, I think it's all the way in 2000. It's the one that uses a ton of stock footage from other movies, sadly. Yeah. And very interestingly, she also appears... Epicenter, that's it. Epicenter with the closest we get to like PM Entertainment All Stars, all together kind of movie, because you have Traci Lords, Gary Daniels, and Jeff Fahey. But she, interestingly though, she is in an episode of the Gilmore Girls.
Is she?
So she is in season 4, episode 5, The Fundamental Things Apply, and she plays a character called Natalie Zimmerman. So maybe her and Scott Patterson stayed in touch. But no, she did, Extramarital in 98 and then Epicenter in 2000. So, she actually sort of dipped in and out of PM from the first one she does is 91? A Time to Die in 91.
So almost, I don't know. Almost from the beginning.
Yeah, and she does a movie with them kind of every other year, more or less, at the same time as sort of, branching out in both TV shows and straight-to-video movies. Things like Circuitry Man 2 and Laser Moon and Skinner, of course, famously with Ted Raimi, which has its own controversial aspects in it. She's even in Virtuosity with Denzel Washington and Russell Crowe, which came up on an earlier episode of this podcast because it was the favorite movie of Ty Barger, who was on the Sweeper episode, which was our episode 1. So, look, she was, as you say, looking to make a name for herself. PM certainly helped her do that or make I hate to use the word legitimate, because I'm not saying that anything she did prior to this was delegitimate or wrong or whatever, but legitimate in the eyes of the general VHS renting public, I guess. And I agree with you. I think and I say 3 movies because they're the 3 that she is, the lead. It's a Traci Lords movie. And while, yes, there are a couple of other actors there with her, A Time to Die, Ice, and Intent to Kill are all very much, Traci Lords movies. I've got to imagine that she had some hand in fleshing out these characters. Obviously she gets to play a little softer side in A Time to Die. She gets to play a little harder side in Intent to Kill and Ice. But in all 3 movies, she's fantastic. I mean, I think that she gives a really great performance in all of them. She gets to do her, as I said, like a female twist on Chuck Bronson in this one. And, by the end of this movie, as I said, she, cocks a shotgun with one hand and walks away from an exploding car and then drops to her knees. I mean, she gets one of the most badass PM endings I can think of.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was like it was right in my notes, it's just like this, beautifully shot ending where, just the fire and then dropping to the knees. It was a powerful scene. It really was. And then the song kind of kicks in at the end. And it was just, actually that whole ending, that car crash, the chase with the 2 police cars, Tracy going after, was it Salvador, I think it was his name, and they jumps through those water barrels. The way it was shot, the wide shot, the way the water just kind of, it was just like it perfectly spreads as the cars twisting through. Beautiful shot. And this was kind of like in the early PM days before they really started doing the big stunts, and it was still beautifully done.
Yeah, definitely. Well, hey gang, I hope you're all doing well. So sorry this week there is no interview. I will continue to pursue as many people as possible to try and get them to appear on the show. As of yet, sadly, we haven't got anyone from this film. But, if we get someone down the line from this movie and we have to release it as a separate interview episode, we can always do that. So no harm, no foul. Anyway, I hope you're enjoying this excellent conversation with Corey Danner. Lots more to come. I just want to remind people to rate and review the show wherever it is possible to rate and review. I actually put a post out on both Facebook and Instagram earlier last week all about the places you could rate, review, like, or comment on the podcast, all of which helps people find us, all of which gets us a bigger audience, all of which is completely free to do. So please help us out where you can. That would be absolutely fantastic. There's now going to be a couple of obligatory advertisements. There always has to be in order to pay for the show. But after that, we'll be right back with me and Corey Danner talking Intent to Kill from 1992, starring Traci Lords. I hope you're enjoying it. Thanks so much for listening, as always. I mean, this is what I always find interesting, because I've seen some of the very early ones and I've seen some of the City Lights ones. And then obviously we focused a lot on sort of the 95 through to like 97 kind of prime era, because I wanted to kick the podcast off with some really well-known top drawer like PM stuff. But what I love about these, when you kind of dip into these early ones, is they have this really interesting blend. And we talked a little bit about this on the Wings Hauser episode. Really interesting blend of kind of the early, more grindhousey, more exploitative stuff with the, action and explosions and car chases and fights and things that they would then become known for. I mean, this movie is, when I went through the bullet points, like, it really has a bit of everything in this movie. You have, you as I said, like at one point a kickboxing match breaks out, you know what I mean? Just to throw a fight in there. You've got car chases galore, you've got explosions, you've got some really intense shootouts. I mean, I said in the thing about them shooting people point blank, there's a lot of that in this movie. Like they put Uzis right up against people's chests and then squibs go off. So I mean, that's kind of dangerous, because even blanks and stuff, expel casings and stuff, right? So,
well, I thought it was interesting because I looked it up and was looking up some things on IMDb, and it listed the movie as being rated NC-17, which was something I never even really picked for violence.
Yeah,
and I had just never even really thought of it that way. But with the way after rewatching it, I see it. Yeah,
and Charles T. Kanganis. Again, I've not seen a ton of his films. I've seen a couple that he's been involved in, but I don't think I've seen one that he directed before. And clearly him and Ken Blakey were having a whale of a time with the slow motion in this movie.
Just the two of them. There's a couple of like really, I don't know, there's a couple of scenes that really, like, just little things too, not necessarily the action sequences. There's a really like really pretty shot of like it was like dawn or dusk or something, and the camera's like slowly panning over, and then it kind of dissolves into like a bluish white hue where the bad guys are all standing in the shadows with the guns, and it was a really like cool looking scene. You're just like, ooh, something's gonna happen here.
Oh yeah, I mean, Ken Blakey knows how to shoot Los Angeles like nobody's business. I mean, that big orange skyscape that looks like something out of To Live and Die in LA or something is just absolutely fantastic. And like you say, whenever you're around the bad guy's lair, or when the bad guys go to do a deal gone bad and shoot up the place or whatever, it's always backlit, blue hues, smoke coming out of somewhere, even every time you see their warehouse where their head guy is hanging out, there's light billowing out of the windows like it's the Exorcist poster or something. It's phenomenal. I love all those little things. I love the fact that he's really playing with some real stylized stuff. I mean, him and Rick are, the predominant cinematographers for PM, and I feel like in their story, as great as Rick is, and Rick definitely helps obviously define the look of PM films. But whatever Rick was doing, Ken took and blew it out of the water, I feel like. I mean, Ken, if anyone is, if you watch PM films and you go, man, they look great, or they look sleazy, or they look weird, or they look cool, or whatever it is, like, Ken is a huge part of that.
Oh, big time. That, and I always liked the fact that in a lot of the early films, with the ones that have that grindhouse kind of feel to them, they always seem to capture bits of that time in LA, walking down the Sunset Strip or whatever. It was a really unique looking place, and for posterity's sake, we have these movies to look back, because it does not look like that anymore. Not even a close. But being able to watch
Hollywood and Vine is still a little scuzzy. Either side of Hollywood, not outside the man's Chinese theater and all that. But if you go one block in either direction of Hollywood and Vine, it's still a little scuzzy. Not this scuzzy, but it's still got some scuzzy elements. But yes, I always equate it to this. Like one of my first, as I was getting more and more and more into kind of grindhouse B pictures, call them whatever you want. Obviously my first in was through stuff like Maniac Cop, a lot of the New York stuff. Yeah. A lot of the Larry Cohen and Bill Lustig and James Glickenhaus stuff, of course, stuff like Shakedown and The Exterminator and some of those. So I always thought of New York as like the mecca of scuzzy, street walking violence and madness, in the Death Wish films and other things like that. Yeah. But actually, Los Angeles, and this is another thing I love about PM, is PM really showed Los Angeles, and there's some other movies. There's like the James Spader movie, like Jack's Back, has a lot of this kind of like scuzzy Los Angeles as well. And there's plenty of others, but I think PM really perfected.
Oh, they did. Like the only other film that's popping into my head, not PM, would be Angel. Maybe the first Angel film.
But there's a few. There's obviously a few, but I like the way that PM do it. Also, the smallest stunts list for a PM Entertainment film that I've ever seen. So proving that Broadway Joe Murphy, who's the main stunt coordinator on this, and a very small team of about, if you don't count Dino Homsey, who did the fight choreography and the kickboxing sequence, if you just consider the stunt guys, it's 5 people. And when you think what they pulled off, that's pretty phenomenal. Oh, yeah. Especially when you think that once you get into the Cole S. McKay, Spiro Rosatos era, the stunt list is like 20, 25 people long. For 5 people to pull off what they pull off in this film, phenomenal.
Oh, yeah, I was really impressed with those. And it's obviously not, it's not up to what we're, I guess, used to, or what our brain wants to tell us is PM entertainment. But you obviously see that evolution. You see where it's headed. And this is an early entry, and they're kind of like almost like they're testing the waters, like see what everybody likes. And they keep ramping it up as they go along.
Also, huge applause for the fact that, and I've not seen this in another movie, outside of comedy movies, I guess, but the callback to the police car on the sidewalk knocking the guy through his glass door. The fact that they literally down to like having the, I think of Eric Idle in European Vacation, like the Monty Python actor Eric Idle.
Oh, yeah.
When they see him later on, he's all bandaged up and stuff like that. And there's sort of like a running gag with him in the movie. The fact that they literally have him all bandaged up like a Monty Python character, like a Mel Brooks character, like a phony baloney. Yeah. They've got like the weird metal holding his arm up, and he's still. What's hilarious is he's still trying to open his shop, like he's still trying to work, even though he's bandaged from head to toe. And then they throw him back through a window. I thought that was in the heat of all this, violence and aggression and every man in her life being an absolute asshole and everything else that's going on in this movie, to have a little comedy callback. I thought that's fantastic.
Yeah, that was something. And actually, I was like, wait a minute. I actually had to rewind it to the beginning and watch it again, because it's almost the exact same shot. Just bandage up. Just let's do it again with bandages.
Yeah, right. No, completely. Yeah, replace the glass. In fact, I don't know if the shot that when you see him go through the glass the second time, can you even tell if he's bandaged, or is that the same shot?
I feel like you can see.
You can. Okay.
I feel like you can see like the bandage on the head, because I don't remember seeing it on his arm or anything like that. But I felt like you can see.
I know you see him out on the street all bandaged up.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But I'm wondering, did they really put a new pane of phony glass in that thing and throw him through twice, or did they just use the same shot? I gotta go check that out now, because I got to imagine PM just used the same shot. I can't imagine PM were buying two sheets of glass, but I don't know. Maybe
no.
not.
I mean, if there's been several films where I've noticed, they use the same crash through a window. I think I wish I could remember both of them right offhand, but one of them was it was a Ted Jan Roberts movie, the one with Corey Feldman.
Dangerous Place.
Yes, they're robbing it's a car dealership, and they're stealing cars, and this car crashes through a window, to get out. And I've seen that in at least one other PM film, but I can't remember what other movie that was. But it was the exact same shot. So there's a very good possibility that fall through the window is this exact same shot.
And who can blame them? Listen, if they paid for it, they can use it as much as they like, as far as I'm concerned. So, favorite scenes then? Are there anything that stands out to you in particular?
I did like the restaurant shootout, as needless as it was pretty brutal, and it kind of gave Traci a chance to, to get back into action for a little while. And then the other scene, probably my favorite scene, is when she goes to the where I don't even know what it was, where all the women were working, and she goes for the job.
Yeah.
And when she's beating that guy after she smashes the bottle over his head, and she's just going to town on him. I was like, oh my God, she's gonna kill this guy. I mean, it really looked like she was putting everything into that hit. So I thought that was a cool scene.
They covered just about every type of asshole male in this movie.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, you've got, gangbangers, you've got rapists, but you've also got, shitty bosses, desk sergeant. The whole scene with the woman explaining this horrible ordeal that she went under, and the desk sergeant, just not giving a shit about it. I've not, even in serious movies, I've not seen a movie that, nailed what it must have been like for women. I mean, even women now, because, how so few rape cases even make it to trial, let alone conviction. What it must be like to sit there and tell that story to a random strange dude behind a desk, especially when he behaves this way. And I think that's what was also interesting, and I again, I don't want to always look back on Traci Lords' past. I know she doesn't, but there's got to have been, just because of the exploitative nature of her life up until a certain point, there's got to have been some things that she brought to the table here where she was like, no, a woman would experience it this way. You know what I mean? The guy, the desk sergeant would be this way, or the shitty boyfriend would be this way, or the scuzzy boss would be this way. Although in typical PM fashion, I thought when she went to the scuzzy boss place, I thought it was that thing where, they have them packaging up cocaine, and so that they don't steal any, they're just wearing aprons and nothing else. I thought it was one of those kind of scenes. I think Glickenhaus does that in Jackie Chan's The Protector, I think.
Yes.
There's a scene like that. So I thought it was that, but then suddenly halfway through the scene, I'm like, no, these women are just polishing pipes in a factory. It's a dimly lit, grimy factory with pipes and tanks and, scaffolding and whatever.
Right.
And they're literally they're fully clothed, and they're just wearing aprons and rubber gloves, and they're just constantly cleaning pipes. Who needs, I've never seen a factory polished before, but these people were just polishing a factory, and with no lights on, just the beautiful light streaming through the factory window, and the red and orange hues on the wall. And then, like you say, he takes her to a back room in the factory, which is also just more factory. He's hiding behind pipes. There's red lights on his face. I mean, it's a phenomenal scene. It's really great, but it's also, when you stop and think about it, there's a great YouTube channel called In Defense Of, and he only did it for a couple of years, and it was 7 or 8 years ago, and he's not done a video since. And it's a real shame, because he covered some PM entertainment films, and it's covered a lot of low budget horror and action and stuff. And he just does these 5-minute videos where he kind of defends movies that are otherwise unheard of, maligned, lost, whatever.
Right.
And tells people why they should watch them. And he comes up with, and he points this out in almost all the PM entertainment movies that he's saying, he's like, there's always a scene in a PM entertainment movie that is so PM, and yet really, if you stop and think about it for 30 seconds, it makes little to no sense. And this is the scene in this movie. It's like, why is it a factory? Why are they polishing the thing? Why is she pretending to be an invalid with a walking stick? Why, like, do you know what I mean? Like, there's 101 questions I have, but at the same time, when you're watching it and you're in the PM, you're in the PM mindset. You're in the movie. They've got you enjoying the movie. You don't think about it at all until later.
No.
You know what I mean?
And even in the conclusion of the scene, when she's, leading them out through the room with the women polishing the the pipes, and they're all cheering, and he's just yelling, "Get back to work! Get back to work!" Right. It was just it was a funny scene, but that was the one that stood out. Whether it needed to be there or not, up for debate, but it was probably
I liked it. No, I mean they had that. It served two purposes. It was like, well, we need to have a scuzzy boss scene, and we're not going to make Yaphet Kotto a scuzzy boss because we like Yaphet Kotto and he's awesome.
Yes.
And so you need to have a scuzzy boss scene because it's another example of like where women would come across asshole men in that time, and now sadly still. And then also it's the scene that leads her to rethink her ways because she arrests him. Mm-hmm. He goes to court and gets off because there was no, she didn't show her badge. She didn't go by the book. She just beat the shit out of him with a glass bottle when he tried to force her to, perform oral sex. And so he gets away with it, and because he gets away with it, it allows it's the scene in the movie that makes her go, okay, maybe I should rethink my ways, I guess. And then you find out that Scuzzy ex-boyfriend, this informant that's in prison that she's been looking after the whole time, he just goes in and beats the shit out of him. But he's okay with doing that. It's fine if he does it. So yeah, it's weird. So yeah, my favorite scenes. Well, first of all, the opening car chase and the ending car chase. Absolutely fantastic. Again, I wasn't really expecting it after The Time to Die or whatever. I was sort of expecting a little bit more action, and then it isn't. It's more of a kind of a drama and a thriller kind of thing.
Right.
And so, the opening car chase and the ending of the movie, both fantastic. I wasn't expecting it. Absolutely great. Really enjoyed it. I think that any scene with Yaphet Kotto in it is incredibly effective because he's so good at doing those lines. I mean, I quoted that one about your fingers will be filing fingerprints until your fingers fall off, which is quite a tongue twister.
That was a good one. That makes your butt my breakfast.
Yes. That's a great line. I'm glad you said that one. Yep.
And when he drops the title of the movie.
Yes.
And when he
says, 39 minutes in.
What was your intent? To kill?
Yes.
I was like, you said it.
What was your intent? Dun, dun, dun. To kill? Yes. Great. Absolutely love it when characters say the name of the movie. All the more when it's obvious. And then, of course, the she's got me drinking, which he says about 3 or 4 times as he's necking Jack Daniels at his desk.
Yeah.
So he was all great. And overall, my overall thing was just I was genuinely surprised by the movie. Really enjoyed it. Yeah, it's a little long. It could have about 10 minutes trimmed. There's a lot of, as I said, that kind of crowbarred in Goodfellas montage. 10 minutes before the end of the movie. I'm like, really? We're having another montage at the 90-minute mark? Like, let's wrap this up, Kanganis. But because I like my movies like a good 90 minutes if possible. But no, I mean, look, there are the whole convoluted thing that, she helps the woman with her rapist. And then later she's like best friends with a woman, moves in with the woman, knows the woman's dad. There's a whole scene at the restaurant or whatever. Again, it's one of those things where I have 2 feelings about it. One feeling is I love that PM bother to put in weird little character backstories that don't necessarily need to be there.
Yeah.
So there's a part of me a part of my genuine film appreciation that loves those scenes. And then there's the, action movie, 90 minutes, straight to video grindhouse me that's just like, this doesn't need to be in there. Just have us stay with Yaphet Kotto and get on with it. You know what I mean? Like, it's, you know what I mean? So it was, there were certainly some scenes that could have been jettisoned. And there's a lot of like the gangsters going around killing people and trying to beat cocaine out of people when actually at the end of the day, all they do is go into the police station, kill everyone and grab it for themselves. So, you know what I mean? But apart from that, I have to say this, it certainly shot to the top of my, like the Traci Lords films for me.
Yeah.
And again, it's a good, you know, top to middle tier PM film. Like it's a strong one. Well, let's rank it then. Let's rank it. Ranking within PM entertainment films.
Ooh. I would say maybe top 10 to 15. Because, I mean, obviously, you know, the stuff that come a little bit, you know, maybe another year or two later when the stunts got bigger and, you know, stuff like that. I mean, those films were just phenomenal as far as like action goes and in the PM canon. But
yeah,
there's still something about Intent to Kill that really sticks with me. And, you know, a lot of it has to do with Traci and her performance. So I think
it's a great performance.
That's going to stick with me. So I would definitely put it in at least the top 15. As far as
had you seen this prior to us chatting tonight, or was this the first time?
Yeah, that's probably like my third time watching.
Okay.
But yeah.
It's so for me, it's kind of what I would call a kitchen sink PM film, which is they throw everything in it, including the kitchen sink. It's like I said earlier, it's kind of got a bit of everything.
Yeah.
And it's got a bit of everything, but in its infancy, right? It's got a little bit of everything where I feel like a movie like this is maybe a step up from sort of the early, like LA Heat, LA Vice, those kind of movies. It's like a little step up with the action. But like you say, it's not quite to the point of sort of the top tier stuff. But then despite all that, you've got this incredible, I mean, a genuinely affecting central performance from Traci Lords. And as I said, some really nice attempt at, well, if the boys can do the cop on the edge movie, why can't I? Kind of feminism, which I love. I actually love that. It's like what Cynthia does in Cynthia Rothrock does in her movies. It's you know, it's then again what you know, people always talk about Linda Hamilton or Sigourney Weaver doing in their franchises. And you know, it's what we see all the time in horror movies. Horror is always known as being fairly, you know, having that double-edged sword of, yes, it's exploitative, but it's also feminist, because very often the woman is the one that survives and the woman's the one that has to be strong, and et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, I think that all adds up to making it, as I said, it's probably, if it's in my top 15, it's probably towards the 13, 14, 15 mark, just because there are so many fucking great PM films.
Definitely.
But, you know, being in the top 15, top 20 of, you know, 100 and whatever plus movies that they made is a good place to be. And it gets a strong recommendation for me as, you know, if you haven't seen this, if you're a fan of the PM Entertainment, a fan of this podcast, strong recommendation to go watch this as soon as possible.
Couldn't agree more.
And I don't know how many Traci Lords movies you've seen, but could you rank it within Traci Lords movies? You know,
I've seen a lot. You know, I followed her film career, you know, pretty closely, and I would put it, you know, I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen the horror movie Excision. She is amazing in that film. Really.
When did that come out?
This would be, I want to say early 2000s, maybe.
Oh yeah, okay.
A really good movie, and she's excellent in it. And that's probably one of her best overall performances. So I would put that I would put it in the top 5 somewhere. I mean, I love Crybaby. I think Crybaby is a great film.
Yeah.
And she has a pretty substantial role. I mean, in some of the other John Waters stuff, her roles are more, I would say, more of a cameo. I mean, in Blade was more of a cameo, even though when you think of Blade, the first scene that pops to your mind is that scene.
Yes.
But it's definitely in the top 5, I would think, as far as Traci Lords films go.
Yeah, in terms of her being the lead, you know, it's in my top 3. In terms of films that she's appeared in, yeah, probably top 5. With, as you said, like Not of This Earth has got to be in there. Cry Baby's got to be in there.
I have a soft spot for Shock 'Em Dead, but
Shock 'Em Dead, yeah, sure. That's a great one. I'm trying to find that Excision movie. I'm not seeing it anywhere. Did it go by another name?
That's what I'm thinking. Maybe I got the name wrong. I'm pretty sure it was called Excision.
She's in Black Mask too, City of Masks. I had no idea.
Yeah, Excision in 2012.
Oh, 2012. That's why I'm still too far down.
Excision. It's a little bit later than I thought.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. No, I haven't heard of this movie. I've got to watch this movie then.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it. Yeah, it's got a little bit of a body horror type vibe to it.
But no, I mean, yeah, I would probably put it in my top 3 in terms of strictly Traci Lords, movies. And yeah, but what a career she built for herself. Fantastic. And I've met her the once at a Comic-Con and had her sign a Cry Baby 8x10. Which was awesome. That's up on my signature wall, which is, you can't see it, but it's
I got one over here actually. But
and she seemed really nice. It was before I'd got into the big PM stuff. But I don't know. Maybe she'll listen to this episode and think, I'll go on that. Maybe I'll go on that podcast and talk to him. So I'll let her agent know that we talked about her and we're very favorable.
I've met her a couple times at conventions, and one time I had talked. I had brought my Shock 'Em Dead Blu-ray, and she's like, "Why do people like this movie so much?" He goes, "Well, I had to try to explain." I was like, "I actually showed her on my phone." I was like, "Look, I have the soundtrack saved on my phone," and she just couldn't believe that people love that movie so much.
Yeah.
And it's a bad movie, but it's just an absolute blast from beginning to end. And
look, she worked with the best. She worked with Corman. She worked with Waters. She worked with PM. I mean, look, if you're gonna go out there and make it in, as I said, I don't like the term, but quote unquote legitimate movies or whatever you want to call them. I think that if you are picking John Waters, Roger Corman, and PM Entertainment as the proving ground for you to make your stand in acting, she's a person of discerning taste, let's say.
Yes, definitely.
As far as I'm concerned. Well, Corey, thanks ever so much for being on the show, man. This was absolutely fantastic. I think we did this movie proud, and it was great to have you on. Let everyone know where they can find your stuff, where they can find you online if you want to be found online, and what you have coming up, if anyone can look out for anything that you're doing.
Well, you can find me on obviously on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram, and I'm working on the PM book. I'm still in the early stages, but it's coming along. I've talked with a publisher who are interested, so things look good that way. I just got to keep plugging ahead, and I believe it's going to be the fall issue of Videoscope. There will be an interview the interview I did with Richard Norton before he passed.
Oh,
is going
wonderful.
to be in there.
Wonderful. Okay, great.
And going back to that was there was some feelings in there because he got a little deep at times, and he couldn't have been a nicer guy.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to have people read, that interview, because I don't know how many interviews he's done in the past year or so. So I don't know, maybe it's one of his last, for all I know.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And I know that Claudio had intended to get him out to Germany at a convention, and instead has got Jeff Speakman, which is fantastic. Yeah, I want to read your interview. Is that sorry, what was the publication again?
Videoscope magazine.
Okay, so it's an actual.
Yeah, it's a print magazine. Yeah.
Okay,
yep.
Nice. Okay, so
you can find them. Usually Barnes and Nobles always carries them, and So, and you can find my book pretty much, the Sheldon Lettich book. You can find wherever books are sold. So that's out there.
Yep. No, I'm going to be picking that one up, and I'm going to be picking up the other one that had actually already been on my list before I met you, but the from 1960 to present, the Good, the Tough, and the Deadly. That was already on my list. So I'll be picking those up. Thank you so much for being on the show, and let's keep in touch. Come back on whenever you like. And we're actually doing the Ted Jan Roberts. It's my first Ted Jan Roberts because it's the one I hadn't delved yet into their family or Karate Kid movies yet. And so I just picked up almost all of his, the Two Magic Kids on VHS. I have A Dangerous Place Coming on VHS. Tiger Heart I got on VHS, and I just bought all the Ted Jan Roberts because I've got to get into them, I guess. Because people actually told me that they're pretty good. The Power Within is the one.
Okay, yes. All right. I remember that one now.
That's William Zabka is in. And Keith Coogan, who I've also interviewed. Maybe I'll get Keith Coogan on the show to talk about The Power Within. Yeah.
I mean,
I had him on my other show talking about Toy Soldiers, which is, I love when teens attack movies. So I love Toy Soldiers, If Looks Could Kill, Gotcha. There's a whole bunch of them, but I love Toy Soldiers is one of I think it's one of the best.
That's a really good movie, yeah.
Die Hard ripoffs that there, because there was Die Hard on a plane and Die Hard on a school and Die Hard on a boat and Die Hard, in a bus or whatever. I think Toy Soldiers needs a lot of love. So I did a whole 25th anniversary special when that came out and spoke to him. So maybe I'll have him on the show to talk about The Power Within. That'd be cool because Ted Jan Roberts has disappeared off the face of the earth.
Much. Yeah, I've looked around. I've tried finding information on him, and it's just there's nothing.
You are now leaving the PM Entertainment Podcast.